Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Education meeting. The board has already met in executive session, and we saluted the flag at that time. So with that, we are up to a roll call, and we are grateful to have Mr. Crute sitting in for Mr. McLaughlin this evening. So, Mr. Crute.
Thank you. I'm trying to get organized here. Mr. Salmon.
Here.
Ms. Schaefer.
Here.
Mrs. Gray.
Here.
Ms. Beckman.
Here.
Mrs. White.
Here.
Ms. Singh.
Here.
Mrs. Korn.
Here.
Ms. Hira.
Here.
Ms. McEwen.
Here.
Thank you. So with that, we are up to our always popular statement of public notice. Perhaps the worst thing about being in this role at this time. This is a regular meeting of the Board of Education of Bernards Township. Notice of the time and place of the meeting was provided, and copies of that resolution were forwarded to the official newspapers as designated by the Board of Education and to the Township Clerk, and a copy of the notice was posted on the bulletin board at the Board of Education offices. Due to the pandemic, the Board of Education expects that in-person attendees to this meeting will have completed or passed a self-assessment of personal health, worn a face covering if unvaccinated, sit in a socially distanced manner, and maintain socially distancing if waiting in line to make a public comment. For those members of the public who are unable to attend our meeting in person, there are 2 live stream links of the meeting posted through the district website. The 2 links are both airing our meeting simply to back the other up and to be prepared for a possible technical difficulty. We very much welcome input from the public. There are 2 times during regular meetings that the public is invited to speak. One is early in the meeting before the board votes, and the other is later in the meeting after the the meeting agenda has been completed on non-agenda items. When you approach the microphone, please state your name and address. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes in duration. No participant may speak more than once during a given public comment session. In order to run efficient meetings and allow maximum opportunity for members of the public to speak, the board reserves the right to set a different time limit for individual comments and/or set an overall time limit for the public comment portion, which we've been keeping at 45 minutes for quite a number of months now. I don't think we'll need that, but that's what we'll use tonight as well. All statements shall be directed to the presiding officer. No participant may address or question the board members individually. For those members of the public who are not attending our meeting in person, public comment may be submitted via email with the following instructions. Starting at 7 p.m., email your comment to btconnect@bernardsboe.com or text your comment to 908-292-3047. Use public comment as the email subject or the start of the text message. Indicate your first and last name and your address. This is required for your public comment to be included in the record. Public comments made in person will be processed first, then comments submitted by email. No public comments sent via email will be accepted before 7 p.m. or after item 17, board forum of the agenda begins. Please understand the public comment portions of our agenda are not structured as question and answer sessions, but rather they are offered as opportunities to share your thoughts with the board. The board may or may not respond to public comments. Any board response to public comments will generally be addressed during board forum or during committee reports. However, all comments are considered and will be investigated and addressed as appropriate. Please be courteous and mindful of the rights of others when speaking. Comments may not be abusive, obscene, threatening, or irrelevant. Please understand that students and employees have specific legal and privacy protections. The board is not permitted to respond in public to comments about students and employees. Please also understand that the board will not be responsible for the content of comments made by members of the public. Members of the public are cautioned that they are speaking at their own risk, and any personally directed statements they may make may subject them to legal liability to the affected individual. If it is necessary for the board to go into an executive session at the end of the meeting, we will provide an estimated length of time for the session and whether any action is anticipated after we return. With that, we are up to the superintendent's report. Mr. Slaya.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Mark Carey isn't with us tonight, so I will be filling in and doing my best. The first item on the superintendent's report, Mr. McInerney is happy to certify the Ridge High School class of 2021 graduates, 470. So I know we had a really nice ceremony now, which feels like an eternity ago. The other couple items, one is just a receipt of the HIB report, a name change on a club to the USA Veterans Club. This is a club that's been running for the last few years. And then Ms. Fox has a technology plan update, which she'll share with you now.
Hi, everyone. I gave everyone this handout, on your desk, which is what I'm going to discuss now. I have a technology plan update for you. So if you recall, on June 14th at the board meeting, Mr. Markarian, Mr. Blinder, the Director of IT, and myself presented a plan to you for a student device initiative. This was based on our thinking of what would be best for students and for staff going into school year 21-22. So I'll review that now, and then I'll update you on where we're at today. So what we were suggesting and recommending to you at that time was that we would divide sort of our plans across grade bands. At the K2 level, we're recommending the use of 15 touchscreen Chromebooks per classroom to be organized in tech tubs and shared across those grade levels that way. We also then recommended, really, grades 3 through 12 would fundamentally be a one-to-one initiative for all students. But at the grades 3 through 5 level, we would place a class set of Chromebooks in each classroom for grades 3, 4, and 5, giving each teacher and students access to devices as would best work within their instruction. Grades 6 through 12, we were recommending that we would have a one-to-one device where students would take the devices to and from school with them, so they had them in school as well as at home. So that was our recommendation at that time, or at least our best recommendation for instruction. But we didn't ask for formal support at that time because we weren't fully prepared to explain or know how the budget would support it. So we were presenting to you our thinking, and then we've spent the last month doing that budget work. And where we are today is we're prepared to formally recommend that plan, which I'm calling Plan A. In addition to looking at the budget and the ways we thought we could support this plan that I just described, we did explore some alternative plans to consider in the event that our budget wouldn't support, that purchase and those devices. So what you have before you were some of the options that we considered. But we're glad to say that we do feel that it'll be best for students and staff to go with our plan, what we call Plan A, and that our budget is going to support it really in year one. With that, if you have any questions, I could certainly answer them. But we are also ready to just ask you for your support. Mr. Salmon?
We've already discussed this,
Yeah.
but so from the top down, not high school, middle school, they're all one-to-one. 3 through 5 is effectively one-to-one because you have 25 per classroom and we don't
Or a
have.
class set.
Class set, right.
Based on the size of the classroom.
So then K through 2, because they might have classes that are above 15.
Sure.
And recognizing obviously the less need for individual screen time at that age, those classes or grade bands within each building will kind of coordinate so that when they're going to do a lesson on a Chromebook, probably every kid in a class will have their individual Chromebook for that time of the day for that lesson.
Sure. We started with this idea of 15 per classroom because primarily at the K2 level there'd be this, the primary use would be center-based, and so we wouldn't necessarily see a need for every student to have a device available to them every day. However, in sort of the way we implement the plan, to your point, we would look at the class sizes in every classroom and look to have what we would call more like a class set available at least across every 2 classrooms, so that if there needed to be an element of sharing, it would occur between 2 teachers. But more likely, given the class sizes at that level, there may even be a class set, in every classroom if there were 16 or 18 students in a classroom. So depending sort of on how the enrollments actually play out, we would look to maximize the number that was in each room. Robin, Mrs. McCann?
Assuming that we all still feel the same as we did when you presented the Plan A a
Right.
month ago, and we were
Right.
going to move forward with this, will you be communicating to parents sometime soon so that they know if their older child is going to be issued a device?
Absolutely. So there's a lot of logistics that need to start happening sort of immediately once we get your go-ahead, and that will happen as soon as possible, starting with placing an order and determining how long until we actually have them in district and can issue them. Ms. Beckman?
Are students, do students have to use the device provided to them, or can they bring their own laptop to school?
Those are the kinds of policies, procedures, and rules that also have to be nailed down and completely worked out. But I will say we lean towards having the students use the district device when they're on campus, especially at the middle school. But like I said, those discussions are ongoing and, hoping to communicate them, as soon as possible, but well in advance of the opening of school.
Okay, thank you.
Schaefer?
Does this plan include the technology support that we talked about, like for fixing them when they break and things like that? No. Let me back up. Forget the ones that
Yeah.
completely die, but
Right. So when we presented in June, we did lay out additional costs associated with this type of an initiative. And so yes, this still includes those considerations for charging stations available in rooms for students or in the school, and additional devices for those students who may end up without a device on a day, and tech support and managing the fleet, increased need for that across the district.
Any other questions for Ms. Fox? I don't know that we need a formal vote. We just need a show of hands. Anyone opposed to the recommendation of Plan A? All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, so I think we're unanimous.
Thank you.
And
That's great
Godspeed.
news. And the work begins.
Exactly. Okay, so with that, we are up to our first public comment session.
Actually, Madam President, I think we need a motion for items 1 to 3 on the superintendent's report.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's right, for our superintendent's report. Can we have Ms. Beckman and Ms. White? And then we need a roll call, too.
Okay. Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Ms. Beckman,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. Korn,
Yes.
Ms. Hira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, and with that, we are up to our public comment on agenda items. So if you would like to make a public comment, please come forward to the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and you can also sign it. Do we have a notebook down there? Did anyone notice? Okay, so, and then also please sign it.
I just have one comment. Would you ladies please speak into the microphone? When you turn your head, the volume really drops very, very low. And I think you do speak a little too rapidly for a novice such as myself. If you'd be so kind, speak directly into the microphone and a little more slowly. And my only question is,
Excuse me, sir? If you would, please,
my name is Lawrence Nastro, 26 Bradford Lane here in Basking Ridge. What does HIB stand for? And what is ESEA grant? That's the Finance Committee coming up.
We'll address your questions, yeah.
We'll address questions after the public comment is closed, so we're taking notes on all of the
Okay, thank you.
comments. Is there anyone else who would like to come up for public comment on agenda items? Okay, seeing none. We have no written questions on email, so seeing none and having none, we will close public comment on agenda items, and we will move on to the approval of minutes. If I could have a motion, please. Mrs. Korn and Mr. Salmon, and a roll call, please, Mr. Crute.
Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes?
Ms. Beckman,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. Korn,
Yes.
Ms. Hira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Crute. So our next item is the Finance Committee report. Mr. Salmon, perhaps you'd like to take this opportunity to just explain the ESSER?
Sure.
If you don't
Only
mind.
if Sean says what HIB is first.
Okay.
Deal. Okay, so HIB stands for harassment, intimidation, and bullying. And every school district in the state of New Jersey is required to maintain a HIB coordinator in every building and also a district anti-bullying specialist. And anytime there's a report of a harassment or intimidation or bullying, we conduct a full investigation in every building. And those investigations are presented to the board, and the board then has to certify and vote on those. So you'll see that monthly on every board meeting, those HIB reports. We like to use a lot of acronyms in education.
Thank you.
So Finance met on July 15th, and the first item for discussion was approval of a revised version of the facilities contract that was awarded to Aramark. So item 7 on the public meeting agenda tonight is that approval. It was a realignment of the cost structure associated with Aramark's unionized labor force. Mr. Beer from Aramark and Mr. Gerichter from Advocate, the district's food service and facilities consulting company, provided an update on the facilities and grounds staffing for the district. Currently, Aramark is still working to fill one custodial supervisor position, one lead custodian position, half a regular custodian position, one grounds supervisor position, and one regular grounds person. Given the short staffing on grounds, Aramark has been supplementing their labor force with third-party landscapers at their own cost. The plan to bring staffing up to contractual levels is that the custodial supervisor position is currently filled by an Aramark employee who may or may not take the position full-time. The lead custodian position is being filled by a promotion in-house. The other custodian position is 2 candidates are being considered and background checked by Aramark currently and will be filled shortly. One, the grounds supervisor is starting on July 27th, and the other grounds person is starting on or around July 27th because it's an employee coming from West Windsor. Mr. Beer said that he's having weekly calls with David Cooney, who is the Aramark facilities manager, essentially the point of contact and the manager for all things Aramark in our district. So Mr. Beer is having weekly calls with him to discuss staffing and work schedules and progress. The second item was an update on the WAM Science Lab project construction. John Perrin, who's the Assistant Director of Facilities, provided an update and displayed some pictures of the progress. The contractual substantial completion date for the project is August 1st, 2021. At the current pace, Mr. Perrin projects substantial completion by mid-August, which is typical in large construction projects that they would overrun the substantial completion date by a few days. Mr. Markarian and Ms. Hudak are keeping track of the construction progress and will determine when staff can safely come into the buildings and if and when rising 6th graders might come in before school starts to get another orientation to the building. The next item up for discussion was an update from Mr. Perrin on the unit lunch facilities update at Ridge High School. Mr. Perrin explained that convection oven required by Aramark is being delivered next week, and a plumber and electrician have been arranged for installation. As we previously reported, the district has submitted plans to serve lunch in areas outside of the cafeteria, for example, the atrium at Ridge. If those plans are not approved or they're delayed for any reason, then the backup plan is to have a food service station in the old gym at Ridge High School that will be mobile. So it'll be moved in for food service and then moved out so that you can have PE in the gym. Dr. Lazovic, Mr. Perrin met with Aramark personnel to discuss the plan, and Aramark reviewed the plan with the township electrical inspector. Dr. Lazovic is meeting with Aramark staff to plan the equipment positioning, movement and storage, timing for daily deployment and removal of the equipment and cleanup. The next item up for discussion was the submission of an ESSER 2 grant, which is part of the CARES Act funding, I think. The application has been with the state for 1.5 months and has not yet been approved due to delays in processing time in Trenton. The ESSER 2 funds would be used to put ionization units in all HVAC systems throughout the district. Mr. McLaughlin received notice that this project, likely costing around $400,000 to $500,000, would not have to go out to bid as long as we use a pre-approved time and materials contractor from a purchasing co-op. Mr. McLaughlin is waiting to obtain estimates until the grant has been approved. He explained that this project could be done during the school year, for example, after school hours, since it's not construction intensive. On the agenda tonight, items 1 through 3 are standing items. 4 is professional development. 5 is donation from Rich and Barbara Ring to support Ridge High School cheerleading. So thank you very much to the Ring family. Number 6 is disposal of science books and outdated Chromebooks. Number 7 is approval of an amended contract with Aramark for facilities and grounds, as I explained before. Number 8 is approval of the submission of the elementary, the ESEA Title 1 through 4 grants. That's the Elementary and Secondary Education Act grants. It's a mechanism for federal funding that can support additional services for low-income students or districts that are low-income districts. So we apply for Title 1, 2, 3, and 4 grants every year for federal funds. 9 is a renewal of our agreement to participate in the New Jersey Schools Insurance Group to procure various insurances outside of health benefits, for example, auto insurance, cyber insurance, workers' compensation. Number 10 is retroactive payment for prior year student services. 11 through 13 are student evaluations, and 15 through 36 are out-of-district placements for ESY this year and the 2021-22 school years.
Thank you, Mr. Salmon. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Salmon? So could we please have a motion to approve items 1 through 36, Ms. Beckman, and a second, Mrs. McEwen? And then a roll call, please, Mr. Crute.
Mr. Salmon.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Gray.
Yes.
Ms. Beckman.
Yes.
Mrs. White.
Yes.
Ms. Singh.
Yes.
Mrs. Korn.
Yes.
Ms. Hira.
Yes.
Mrs. McCune.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Our next item is the Personnel Committee report. We have items 1 through, thank you, 40 on the agenda. If we could have a motion, Mr. Salmon, and a second, Mrs. White. Mrs. McEwen, did you want to add anything?
The Personnel Committee has not met since our last meeting, so I do not have a report.
Thank you. Mr. Crute, could we have a roll call, please?
Sure. Mr. Salmon.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Gray.
Yes?
Ms. Beckman.
Yes.
Mrs. White.
Yes.
Ms. Singh.
Yes.
Mrs. Korn.
Yes.
Ms. Hira.
Yes.
Mrs. McCune.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Crute. Our next item is the Policy Committee report. Mrs. Korn, do we?
There's no report, but I read out the last time. This is just, we have, make a motion for a second reading and adopt the policies that were read out for the first reading last time.
So unless anyone has any questions, can we have a motion on the policies to be approved this evening? Mr. Salmon and Ms. Korn? And a roll call, please, Mr. Crute.
Mr. Salmon.
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer.
Yes.
Mrs. Gray.
Yes.
Ms. Beckman.
Yes.
Mrs. White.
Yes.
Ms. Singh.
Yes.
Mrs. Korn.
Yes.
Ms. Hira.
Yes.
Mrs. McCune.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And our next item is the Curriculum Committee report.
Curriculum met last week, and I will report out on it at the next meeting, but I do have a few items I guess, do we make a motion on this, or just approve? It's for the textbooks. If you turn over, I don't know if you even noticed, on the back of your addendum, it is, we're approving 2 new textbooks, one for physics and one for chemistry. And I don't know if we need to do it separately than the new course names, or if I can just do it all
You can
do it all
just share
together.
the course
Okay.
names, and then we'll
Okay.
take the motions for both.
Okay, and then there are 2 new courses, a chamber orchestra and chorale for 9th and 10th grade, and these are credit-earning music offerings of 2 or 4 credits that are being made available to students to assist in the scheduling of these courses in relation to the new rotating drop schedule.
Any questions for Mrs. White? Okay, then can we have a motion? Mrs. McCune and Ms. Hira? And I apologize, Mrs. White, I didn't see the back side of the agenda. And then, Mr. Krug, could we please have a roll call?
Mr. Salmon,
Yes.
Ms. Schaefer,
Yes.
Mrs. Gray,
Yes.
Ms. Beckman,
Yes.
Mrs. White,
Yes.
Ms. Singh,
Yes.
Mrs. Korn,
Yes.
Ms. Hira,
Yes.
Mrs. McCune.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you, Mr. Krug. Ms. Schaefer, our next item is a Wellness Committee report. I believe you have one tonight.
Indeed. Wellness continues to meet. We met on June 16th. We are taking the summer off, but the committee met to discuss the summer initiatives for wellness. So summer projects, there's a tremendous number of staff college opportunities related to wellness. Thank you, Mr. Syatt, and character education throughout the district this summer. 2 rotating evaluations. So every 5 years, every department gets evaluated in some way. So right now, in the counseling program, the K-12 career program evaluation is mid-evaluation. So they're finishing their second year of evaluation, and by the end of the fall, or for the fall, they'll report on recommendations to move forward with career planning. They're in the process of assessing other districts and where we are, and decided not to apply for the grant application for the middle school that we had discussed the last time because it's not really a fit for us. The K-12 counseling program evaluation has begun this year, and it's a 2-year cycle, so they're hoping to, they will have some recommendations for the next 5 years next fall, so fall 2022. The middle school team is actually meeting to discuss, and they're convening to create a summer curriculum project for group counseling, which is really cool. Actually, this is kind of cutting edge for school districts. They're looking to take their group counseling program and push it to CASEL standards. And CASEL is an acronym for something that I can't remember the name of. Does anybody? It's
the National Association for School Counselors.
Yeah, it has something to do
Yeah.
with standards
Right.
of counseling school standards. So they're working on creating a hub for resources for people to pull from, and creating a formal curriculum for group counseling that they're kind of hoping will be something that can be passed to other districts. And the school counselors at the high school are continuing to do a project that was started a year or 2 ago for summer letters of recommendation. They're able to write 25% to 50% of their letters of recommendation for their seniors for college, completing those prior to school year, which as a former counselor, I will tell you is incredibly helpful. We also discussed the end of year wrap up, to discuss, the staff met to discuss students who are switching from schools. So students who need support from going from elementary to WAMS, from WAMS to high school, where they meet with groups from counselors, administration, INRS, 504, SACS, and provide continuation of services when appropriate. They're working on returning to school planning, supporting students who are transitioning back. We are having conversation about needs assessment to determine counseling needs. How do we support students who are returning after 18 months? They're looking at all kinds of options, including SACs and classes at the start of the year to offer support, putting together another survey or needs assessment tool, they're actually planning for mental health needs and school refusal. They're evaluating resources. What do we think we need for extra support in the fall? We're talking about having maybe an orientation to school for 1st, 7th, and 10th graders who also haven't been in school, not just the kindergarten, 6th, and 9th graders who are starting in their schools. And supporting teachers, trying to figure out how to support teachers who have classes of kids that aren't familiar with or practiced at classroom behavior. There's also discussion about trauma-enforced practices training. That's something we've been talking about, and bringing George Scott back for the whole staff training during in-service days on September 1st and 2nd. Mr. Scott spoke to parents in the fall and spring, and both videos and recordings are posted on the website. which is really great watching. So I really encourage anyone who's interested in hearing about supporting our students as they head back to school into what could be a different situation from last year. Our next meeting is September 30th. Any questions?
I looked up CASEL, if you want.
Oh, thank you.
Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning.
There you go. Collaborative for Academic and Social
And
Emotional Learning. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Schaefer. Our next item is Liaison Committee Reports. Does anyone have anything tonight?
We didn't meet, but I think I had an email, but maybe,
Okay.
I was going to highlight, hold on, I might not be able to find it. Okay, there was just a flyer from about the teen 2021 Kids and Teens Summer Programs that are available at RVCC. And there's classes offered between June 21st and August 23rd, so obviously they already started, but we hadn't had a meeting. And you can go to raritanval.edu/kids-teens for more information. If there's like science and robotics, reading and writing, health and wellness, video games, esports, computer coding and programming, SAT, math and English prep, and others. And people are interested in, they're looking for something for their kids to do in the middle of the summer.
Okay, thank you. And then our next item is public comment on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone here tonight in person who'd like to come up and make a comment? Please state your first and last name and address for the record, and sign in when you have a moment.
Sherry Nelson, 195 Smoke Rise Road. I just have a question. The SOS that came out on July 9th from Mr. Markarian just laid out the CDC guidelines for returning in the fall, but it didn't really say what the district was going to do with those guidelines. I know that masks are optional for ESY, which is great. The students and staff seem really happy about that, and I see you guys aren't wearing masks tonight. And everywhere I go, I see people not wearing masks. So have we made a decision on what we're doing in September with that guidance? That's really all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Kunal Jaiswal. I live at 11 Joanna Court in Basking Ridge, New Jersey. All right, I've got two topics that I wanted to at least bring to your attention. The first one is a social one. I wanted to understand, really, I guess it may be to the wellness committee or whatnot, is really around vaping. And I wanted to understand if the district understands or has assessed the challenges that vaping is or how pervasive it is within the school district. I know I found out about it, and I was surprised to learn as to how many kids that I learned at Ridge High School who are vaping. And I don't know, and again, this is not to reflect on the board or the school board at all. It comes with the kid, the family, and certainly the community. And so I guess I'm trying to ask about the community question as to what have you guys been doing in terms of active or passive? Are you measuring success, and what does that look like? So that's number one. Number two is a very minor item, and it's more of a conversation that I wanted to have with you guys, or at least to throw it out there. My younger daughter, she is in William Annan Middle School, recently applied for the STEM program. I perceived that whole experience for her was pretty nerve-wracking for a kid who just wants to learn about STEM. She went through it, she got in. And what I was actually a little bit disappointed was in the way the letter that came out congratulating her. There was lots of competition, this, that, and the other. And I'm just stepping back. My kid's not I wouldn't say she's the brightest kid in school, but she's a hard worker. She got in. And if other district kids are, if they just want to learn about STEM, what's holding them back? I mean, is it a budget issue? I mean, we live in Baskin Ridge. I know what kind of taxes I pay. So I wanted to understand that and get your perspective on, why would you do that to at least 8th graders who want to at least learn it? She's going to have that opportunity. That's good. I even advised her, when she was going through it, because she was a little, what I would say, worked up about it, to say, it's okay. There is no lockbox on education and learning. If you don't get in, that's fine. We're going to go to the library, we're going to pick up some things, and we're going to learn about it. But for the school to do it in such a competitive fashion at the 8th grade level, I don't know. I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it. You guys are educators. I'd like to get the education answer rather than the bureaucratic answer. So with that, I'll leave you. Thank you. I'll sign in.
Hi, my name is Karen Zubalake. I live on 82 Church Street in Liberty Corner. I did want to just talk about the masks a little bit for the fall. My son Alex is in the CPAT program, and there are 100 kids in the district in the CPAT program. These are our most vulnerable students because many of them can't communicate properly. My son Alex nearly fainted one hot day in June and was immediately sent to the nurse. His heart rate was high all day, and he was most likely suffering from dehydration. He could not tell his teacher he felt dizzy. He could not tell his teacher he was having trouble breathing, and he could not tell his teacher he was thirsty. There are 100 kids in the CPAT program that are unable to tell their teacher if they feel dizzy, if they have difficulty breathing, or if they are thirsty. What is the contingency plan for our most vulnerable kids if they are forced to wear a mask in the fall?
Is there anyone else who'd like to come up to the microphone for public comment?
Hi, everyone. I put some thoughts down on my phone, so forgive me for reading. Thank you for your time today. My name is Kalpana Devani.
Excuse me, I'm just going to ask you to state your first and last name and address.
I was just about to do that. My name is Kalpana Devani. I'm at 476 Lyons Road in Basking Ridge. My daughter will be a first grader at LCS this year. I want to say thank you for getting our children back into school 5 full days this spring. Even if it was only for the last 6 weeks, it made a huge impact on my daughter and her willingness to learn, which wasn't really happening at home. So even though she's having the time of her life at camp, those 6 weeks really gave her a lot of hope and excitement about the year ahead. So today I'm just here to urge you all to make masks optional for school this upcoming year. The governor of the state has passed the buck to all of you now. And the statistics are there, according to the CDC, and I'm sure you guys have heard this over and over again. But the mortality risk of COVID to children is extremely low, and it's even lower than the flu for children. The risk of severe disease or hospitalization is about the same. 80% of American COVID deaths have been among those 65 and over, and according to the White House, 90% of American seniors are now fully vaccinated. So while cases will likely still occur, and some of them may lead to death and hospitalization, the vaccines have eliminated the overwhelming share of mortality risk. So the question is who's the mask really for? And I realize that a decision hasn't been made yet, but I urge you guys to make masks optional and let us choose for our children. We were told to base decisions on science, so I'm hoping that we can do that this year. And I'm hoping that we can base decisions based on what's happening in our community. I'd really love my child to be able to express themselves fully and be able to show their expression to their teachers and their classmates. I think that would make a huge difference. I'm seeing it in her this summer going to camp. And I really feel as though she's missing out on those years, and I realize that saying that might be a little insensitive to those that have experienced heartbreak with this pandemic, but it's breaking my heart seeing her go through some of the things that she's going through as well. So I just hope that soon, prior to the school year starting, you're all able to provide us with a well-thought-out plan for the upcoming school year versus just an email on the recent guidelines. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Stella Perna, 105 Tuxford Terrace. Going along with the mask as well, I'm curious if we have any statistics on how many children in our district have died from COVID. Because if it's 0, I don't understand why we need the masks. If we get sick with COVID, which, by the way, we're all going to get COVID at some point, the masks aren't going to stop it. So I would really urge that masks become optional. Also, I'd like to see less acronyms on these agendas because it keeps people out. Over and over, I'm texting people, what's HIB, what's this, what's that? If we want to include the community, acronyms really should be used only within committees. Having worked on many projects over my career, that was the one thing I was always adamant about in the first meeting, no acronyms. That way there's understanding with all parties involved and everyone feels connected. I think that's a very simple ask. Thank you.
Hi, Victoria Costa, 15 Hilltop Road, Basking Ridge. I have a question. There's been a rumor floating around town that kids who are vaccinated will be able to go mask-free in September, and kids who have not been vaccinated will need to have masks. I'd like to know from the Social Emotional Learning Committee and the Anti-Bullying or HIB Committee what you plan on doing with bullying against kids who are not vaccinated, if that's the route you're going to take.
Do we have anyone else who would like to come up to the microphone?
Hi, my name is Cindy Wong, 22 Carriage Way, Basking Ridge. This is my first meeting today, as my son will be attending Liberty Corner in kindergarten this coming fall. Although my son is new to the school system, my husband and his family has been here for 20 years. We really love the area, we love the community, we really love the school system. We are obviously have been concerned with all the things that have been going on, especially with our children. Our family really would like the board to consider making masks optional for all the children as well, and leave that decision back to their parents. Just like many of us here today who have decided, you had your choice whether to wear a mask today. You can make that decision for yourself. We'd urge you guys to let that decision be given back to the parents for their own children. My child, being 5 years old, he's very shy. He likes to be accepted. He wants to kind of go with the crowd. He's currently in daycare, and I recently had the mask removed from his daily wear because he just, you could tell it was really just continuously holding back himself as well, health-wise and emotionally. And him being the only one in the class with the mask, he'd rather be that one out than that person who can't breathe freely. So I just really want you guys to consider this for all the parents and the children in our community. Thanks.
Is there anyone else for public comment in person? Before we go to the email, I just want to say thank you to everyone who came out tonight for a July meeting. This is a nice audience, and thanks to so many folks for coming up and sharing your thoughts with us. Ms. Fox?
Yes, we do have some public comment. The first, hi, my name is Nikela Carda Maroc, 58 Independence Drive, Basking Ridge, and I'm a rising senior at Ridge High School. I am requesting that all students wear masks in the fall. Allowing all students in person is a good first step. However, there are many variants of the COVID-19 virus that the vaccine does not protect against. To avoid full school closure, it would be safest to wear masks, especially because it is not a requirement for students to be vaccinated. The next comment is from Stacy Irvine, 42 Mount Airy Road. I have a question about an item in the personnel report on the meeting agenda. 2 of the positions being abolished are for the BD program, 1 special ed BD teacher and 1 BD aide. The program includes multiple schools. Could you specify from which schools these positions will be abolished? And a comment from Paul Maroc, 58 Independence Drive. Thank you to the BOE for its efforts over the past year. I request the BOE require masks be worn, as not all students and teachers are fully vaccinated. With different variants and flu season upon us, it would be prudent to require masks be worn by all staff, students, administration, and entrants to all Basking Ridge schools. Thank you for your careful consideration. Public comment from Ripacarda, 58 Independence Drive. Thank you to the BOE for its consistent efforts to accommodate the safety and well-being of all students within the past 18 months and for this upcoming academic year. I would like the BOE to require masks be worn, as not all students are fully vaccinated, nor are all eligible for vaccination unless there's a medical reason for non-use and non-compliance. With different variants and flu season upon us in the fall, it would be prudent to require masks be worn by all staff, students, administration, and entrants to all Basking Ridge schools. I will not state scientific statistics to which you all have access. Further, feel free to rely on the district's medical professionals' opinions and input. If mask use will not be mandated, then will there be a requirement for vaccination for those eligible, as in 12-year-olds and above? Thank you for your careful consideration on this important issue. And that is the last comment. Mrs. Gray.
Thank you, Ms. Fox. Mr. Syatt, I know we have a theme with a group of the comments, and then we have one very specific one about the personnel agenda. Do you want to address any of these?
Sure, yeah, I'll make an attempt at some of them. The questions about masking, so obviously the district hasn't made a decision about health and safety protocols yet. Obviously we're monitoring not just the health conditions, but also we're in close communication with the New Jersey Department of Health, our own nursing coordinator, our school physician, and also you probably are already aware that the New Jersey Department of Health did release the 2021-22 health and safety guidelines. They're calling it the road forward, and actually there's a specific statement in there bolded on page 4 of the document, and it mentions, I'll just read it because it's just a sentence, updated CDC guidelines on masking in the school setting is expected prior to the start of the 21-22 school year and will factor into the final recommendation from the state. And remember, they're saying recommendation from the state for masking this fall. This guidance will be updated following that release. So I would anticipate that Bernards Township guidelines will be issued much closer to the start of the school year. The BD question, so I did want to mention when we do have a reduction in force in education, what that means is that we're reducing by that number of full-time equivalencies. Full-time equivalencies is one position. So in the specific case of the BD teacher, that was at Cedar Hill, and that was just not filling a position. So no individual actually lost a position. It was just not filling that position due to enrollment. And then the other question was about STEM, and I think, Ms. Fox, you're prepared to answer that one?
Sure. I appreciate the question. Certainly it's what we talk about every year when we consider how to move forward with, the program each year, STEM 8, and the sort of application process that has emerged over the last few years. We do reflect on that quite a bit. So specifically, you asked why have the process at all, and it is actually a function of scheduling and the way that the course itself works, it is paired together with Science 8. So the students take their elective for the year back to back with their science class, and with the schedule, there's only the possibility of running 2 sections. So it's not a budgetary concern, it would be a scheduling situation or revising the program and the way the course actually works. So it's certainly something we reflect on every year. I think that was your specific question, right? I mean, I think so, and if not, certainly we could answer further questions another time. Sure. Sometimes we're limited, though, by space, and that's the case here. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, that question I'm going to refer back to our SEL committee, and we'll get back to you with an answer on that one.
Mrs. Korn.
I just want to make a suggestion on this particular question, or any question. I know many of you know. Please feel free to email the Board of Education. You can email us at boardmembers@bernardsboe.com. That way we have your contact information, which is a good way for a little bit more specific information on your question to get back to you.
For the vaping, I have a little bit of it, because,
Yeah, Jen, you got to talk better into the...
sorry. Hold on. I'll talk real loud. So for the vaping, the Municipal Alliance works with the Ridge kids in REACH, which I think it's still called REACH, the Ridge Education Action and Community Health, and they have a grant for vaping prevention. Unfortunately, because of the shutdown, COVID shutdowns, they weren't able to do any of but they've done it in the past. They've had, at Ridge High School, they've had setups like trying to show kids how bad vaping is. I mean, you try to tell kids how bad drinking is too, and kids still drink, unfortunately. But the vaping has been really on top, it's been on top of their list, and they've been doing it for the last, I want to say 2 or 3 years, with the kids doing it. The kids are, and they got grants, and they worked with, I think, Stephanie maybe even, and they did programs, and I don't know if there's anything on the website right now, but you can email Caitlin Cartaccio over at the Municipal Alliance, which is part of the Health Department, and I'm hoping that they're hoping to start up all these programs again coming in the fall for the anti-vaping. Well, we don't.
That's why I mentioned we're not prepared to answer that right now.
We can't do that. I can just tell you what we're doing to try to prevent vaping and to educate children on how bad vaping is.
And some data, because of COVID, we collect data on how many kids, we have, suspicion-based drug testing, and vaping is considered, there's you can look in our policies and see what the policy is if you get caught vaping. But during COVID, when students were learning from home, that wasn't going to happen at school, obviously. So it's hard to know. I've read some studies showing that during COVID, some kids stopped vaping because they were home and they had no access to get it, or their parents were watching them, and other kids vaped more during COVID because they were bored and they were home. So I don't know if there's any good national studies about what happened with vaping in that age, kids. But I suspect there were some changes during COVID. But as the students come back to school, then we'll have a better sense of what's going on at school.
I would just add that I don't know that we're ever going to have a completely accurate sense of that trend you're seeking, because you're assuming a disclosure. And if you get caught, sure, you know what happened, but what about the kids who are doing it after school, before school, at home? To have a very clear and accurate statistics would require everyone to disclose what they're doing, and I don't know if we have that kind of confidence in the ability to collect that information.
The only other thing I can jump in on is that at this board meeting back in December, the SEL committee did report out that a vaping prevention grant was awarded to Ridge High School in the amount of $7,000. And so, of course, because of the pandemic, things got put on hold, but we're supposed to be utilizing those funds, and it specifically states it must be for preventative measures like bringing in speakers, doing counseling, and it's supposed to be disseminated to the SACs, our student assistance counselors, and those folks are the folks that are working with students who are most at risk. So that is a bit of an update, but I'll try to get you some more information if possible.
Okay, so I think that's it for public comment, and our next item is board forum. What board members, does anyone want to add anything on anything? Ms. Korn?
I wanted to give a shout out to the Ridge Boys, the track and field team, the 4x800. They won the national 4x800 championships earlier this month in Oregon, which is huge. So it was Will Pinto, James Kisker, Jackson Barna, and Luke Roberts. It says they put together the top time in the nation to win the outdoor nationals in a time of 7:39, which is amazing. And they also, I think, placed second in the distance medley relay, and they had a school record by over 10 seconds. And I think a couple of them, one of them ran, James Kisker ran the 800, and he placed 15th. And this is in the national, race in Oregon. So I give a shout out to them because that's amazing. They did a great job. So I wanted to do that. And then I wanted to mention about the mask, since it's, the elephant in the room when we don't talk about it. So it's not really the elephant. It's like, whatever. I really feel that the way to go, the only fair way to go is to have, like we're doing now, optional. Give the parents the option whether to mask their children or not, because people, like there's people who have fear, not fear, I want to say fear, concerns about masking your children is detrimental to their health is just as valid as being afraid that your kid's going to get COVID if they don't wear the masks. They are just as valid points. So if you think your child is being hurt mentally and emotionally by wearing a mask, it is just as valid as if you're afraid that not wearing a mask is going to expose them to more COVID. So it seems to me the only thing you can do in order to satisfy everyone, let everyone do what they want to do, since we live in America and the United States, and that's usually what it is. So if you are afraid, if you think your kid should be wearing a mask, by all means, please have your child in a mask. If you think it's going to be detrimental to their mental or physical health, then they don't have to. I don't think it should be mandated. I don't think that's right, and I really don't think you should be mandating vaccines, or it's nobody's business who gets vaccinated or not. And that's how I feel personally.
You looking at me?
Yeah, I'm looking at you.
No, I agree. I think it was very telling public comment. I think it's very clear that there are two sides and two opinions and two perspectives, and I think it's really, really important for us to be respectful of both sides. And, to the parent that came forward to say, I hear this rumor, I think it's very important to understand that what you're hearing then, that's a rumor, because we have not made a decision one way or the other. And, when we talk about bullying, there's also parent bullying. And I think for parents who are getting upset with parents who have different points of view on this, I think, we all need to be more respectful. And, I personally, I am comfortable with saying it should be, a parent's choice to whether you want your child to wear a mask or whether you want your child to, go maskless. But at the same time, we're going to get recommendation that tells us our direction. And at this time, we're not being told that we must require students to wear masks. It's just a recommendation. Our numbers are great. But as Mr. Syed said, we're going to get some sort of directive, probably as close to the start of school as possible. And at that point, we're going to have to look at it, and we're going to have to see, are we being told what we have to do, or are we being told we can make a recommendation? And I think at that point, we will have a discussion about it, and we will take both perspectives into mind. We will not just listen to one side or the other, because that is what our job is to do. It is to listen to all points of view.
Yeah, I agree with what Jen just said. I think, one of the speakers came up and said we should look at the science. And so, right now, rates are low in our area, and our, town is doing well, and the risk is fairly low. There's camps running all over the place, and people aren't having outbreaks of COVID. There's some cases, but it's not a lot. And so, things can change, by the end of the summer. Hopefully, they don't get worse, and we're not in a situation where the science is telling us something different than what we are hoping. But I think at this point, we're not making decisions at this point. We need to have all the facts, and we need to listen to everything when we get to that point. And obviously, I think, none of us want our kids to have to wear masks in school. We've had this discussion at pretty much every board meeting since, we came back. So, yeah, I agree with what Mrs. White said. We need to be respectful when we talk about it, and even for adults, I've seen some people being ridiculed, like in public. It's pretty bad. So I think we really need to focus on trying to stay positive and respectful when we talk about it.
Ms. Schaefer?
I just want to comment too that I think if students or parents have a choice, then to address that parent's concern that students who are going to be required, let's skip that, but anyone who chooses to wear a mask shouldn't be bullied for wearing that mask. And if they choose to do that, I think they shouldn't be bullied to wear a mask. So, I think we're going to be very aware of that and making sure that students are comfortable wherever they are with this, whatever they're wearing, masks or otherwise.
I just want to, that was the comment I was holding off on making, and I feel very much that way, actually, with all of you, that we have to be respectful of each other no matter where we fall on the issue, because we're a community and we live and we go to school together and we see each other out at public places, and our students take their cues from how we as adults behave. So I agree that if we are going to have a mask optional, we need to be just as understanding and respectful of those who are choosing to wear a mask as those who are not. It goes both ways. And I also agree with your last quiet little comment. That goes for whatever students choose to wear. So it doesn't have to be limited to masks, but I think in this instance, that's going to get a lot of attention. There's just one thing I'd like to add. I know you're waiting, Mrs. White. Our August board meeting is on August 23rd, which is a Monday. And, I'm not a betting person, but if I were, I would bet that we may not have guidance by the 23rd of August. And we appreciate that you want information from us. We desperately want information from the state. So as soon as we have the information, that's when the planning and the, policy making or decision rulemaking can begin. So I just kind of ask everybody to try to be patient with us, and I know you're all watching, the news and the governor's office, and so you know when those announcements are made. And just try not to ask us before we could possibly have an answer, is all I'm asking, please.
I just want to say something totally not related to masks or anything. I just wanted to say that graduation this year was absolutely beautiful, incredible, touching. It was so lovely to be able to have the entire graduating class together out on the field, and to end the year with normalcy. I'm biased because I had a graduate, but it just, my previous graduation was indoor due to rain. So this was just so, it was so beautiful to see the kids all come together, the staff march in. It was kind of the culmination of what we've been hoping to get to for the end of the school year. And I really just want to thank Dr. Lazovic, because a lot of planning had to go into pulling it off. Not that it doesn't in other years, but in this year in particular. And I think the parents of all graduating students were extremely thankful.
And he mentioned Ferris Bueller in his speech, which, how can you top that, really?
Mr. Salmon.
Yeah, I don't know how many of the millennials picked up on that, but I appreciated it. Oh, okay, all right. I hate to go back, but the mask thing, so like, I hope that there, like Sean said, that there's a guidance coming from somewhere higher up at some point, and I personally hope that it is a directive, because I still, like I've said before, hate that, if this decision, which is a public health decision, gets punted down to school districts, which are not in the business of public health, I think that's like a terrible idea. I hated it the whole time. That last 6 weeks, I'm glad we kind of, made some changes, but I think that the way that the kind of political system in the state operated on that, I thought it was just like a shame, and I really didn't, I don't feel comfortable making that decision at all. So I really hope that the guidance coming out is either, it gives some criteria, like parents have been asking for the past year and a half. What's your criteria for reopening? What's your criteria for full days? What's your criteria for masks? I mean, we're looking to people that are not, this is the business of, this is education. This is talking about curriculum and things that are going on, and typically go on in schools, not things that go on in epidemiology classes. So I do hope that it is the directive that we get, and I hope that it's an easy decision to make just based on some objective criteria. On another note, I really, really hope that we get that the other orientation program going for the kids that are in first grade, 7th grade, and 10th grade that, maybe only got 6 weeks of school or were virtual for the whole year. I think that's a fantastic idea. And I really hope that comes off, because I think those, especially that, I think everybody, because you're transitioning to school, but for the kindergartners that only maybe saw 6 weeks of school last year or no school if they were virtual, to now come to first grade, I think it's a great idea to have them get into the building a little early and see the space and things like that. So I hope that program comes off. I think it's a great idea.
Ms. Corn?
I just want to give a shout out to Kristen and Sean, everyone working on the rotating drop schedule, because I am so excited for that. I think it's going to be such a great thing for the high school and for the kids, and it's just going to be, it's exciting, and forget all the, hopefully we can forget all the math stuff and just go in there and be like, wow, look at this great new schedule I have. It's working for everyone, and and I know you guys are working so hard, so I just want to say thank you, because I think you can't really realize how hard you're working, because I know our schedule is so crazy, and hopefully this will, once we get this going, it'll make it run smoother every year. And I just think it'd be good for the teachers, for the students, for everyone in the school. So it's something really to look forward to in September, I think, and for everybody to look forward to. So I just wanted to shout out for that.
I'll just say thank you, but I have to give, shout out to the Ridge admin team and teachers who have been working tirelessly to make this a really great opening with the new schedule.
Anyone else? I just want to say on Jen's comment, at long last, I've been here a long time. It's been 10 years we've been talking about this, and it's amazing that it's happening, and I'm so excited. Even though all my kids have graduated and missed all those opportunities, I always looked forward to it, and I'm really, really glad that it's here, and I know that the kids are going to embrace it, and it's going to be really good for them. So if no other board members have any board forum comments, I guess we can make a motion for adjournment. Mrs. Korn and Mrs. Beckman, all in favor? Good night, everyone. Thank you all for coming.